This is Can I Laugh on Your Shoulder? Hey, welcome to Can I Laugh on Your Shoulder? I'm Molly Stillman, and this is a podcast where I get to sit down with a different guest each week and have raw, funny, often brutally honest conversations about the things that matter most: faith, business, life, and everything in between, where we each learn how to be good stewards of the things we've been entrusted with, even our stories, and how we can use those things to serve others and leave our families, our friendships, and our communities a little better than we found them. I want to create a space where people are unafraid to be themselves and unafraid to ask the questions the rest of us are thinking. My goal is to make you laugh, cry, and laugh till you cry. My guest this week is Carmin Black. Carmin Black is the co-founder and CEO of Half United. Founded in 2009 in Wilmington, North Carolina, Half United is a globally minded, human-first lifestyle brand committed to partnering with customers to fight hunger and empower lives with each purchase made. Each collection reflects Carmin's love of fashion, philanthropy, and travel, seen every season in the product design as well as the videos of the people and places where each purchase helps. Half United is sold in more than 300 stores globally and embraces a philosophy of humans first and by fighting hunger and poverty, specifically for children and families with every purchase made. They've partnered with organizations in Cambodia, Liberia, Fiji, Nepal, and right here in the United States. They've provided school lunch meals, creating school gardens, giving away holiday meals. They've started fish farms and even purchasing beehives that provide honey and pollinate school crops. I have been a huge fan of Half United for years. In fact, they were one of the first companies that I started following back in the original or kind of early days of my ethical fashion and purchasing with purpose journey. And I'm so excited that I finally got the chance to sit down and chat with Carmin. And we talk a lot about what does it look like to find our true north in our lives, in our businesses. We talk about what is the means to the end in what we do. What is our why? Oh, this conversation gets deep. It is so good. I love Carmin and I love the work that they are doing with Half United. So I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation. So without further ado, on to my chat with Carmin Black. It's always an exciting day when I have a fellow North Carolinian on the show. So, Carmin, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, Molly, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you today and get to know you. And this is great.
This is awesome. Okay. Well, real quick. So for the listeners and for me also selfishly. So where in North Carolina are you guys based?
Okay, we are in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Like as far east in the United States as you can get.
I know. It's like where I-40 ends.
I-40 ends in my town, and we literally live right on the beach. So
yes. Okay. So my family and I go to Oak Island multiple times a year. So it's not that, it's like a hop, skip, and a jump from there. So, and we're not that far. We're only like probably like a hair over 2 hours from each other, 2.5 hours maybe.
In Hillsborough?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you're 2 hours away. And then when you come to Oak Island, you're like 30 minutes away. So you definitely have to come to our retail store.
Yeah. Okay. Next time I'm in town, it's a date, Carmin. It's a date. I
can't wait.
We're already making it happen. Okay. Well, yeah. I am so pumped about this because I have loved your work and have followed Half United for a long time. I think one of the OG bullet jewelry pieces from like when you guys first kind of started. So I'm just really excited to get to know you and to call you a friend. And so let's dive right in. And I'm going to have you give us the Carmin 101. So who are you? What do you do? How'd you get to where you are?
Okay. Oh my gosh. You know how that question,
no pressure.
I know I could take like a year to answer that question. So I am a female, I don't know, I'll give the canned answer. I'm a female social entrepreneur. I own a company, of course, called Half United, which has now been in business for 13 years. We exist to fight hunger and poverty with every purchase made. We give 7 meals to children and families in need. Sometimes the children are in the families we support. Sometimes it's just adults. And So we sort of say it that way, but kids and families in need. Every time you make a purchase, it's like spoiler alert. Later this year, we are actually going to be segmenting our brand into a for-profit and nonprofit entity, which is really exciting. The nonprofit entity now, after 13 years, has a $500,000 community kitchen at a local MLK center that is being started by us in partnership with the city of Wilmington. We have an urban farm that we operate. We have 10 community gardens that we operate and a farm to school program at a local middle school. In addition to, we work with an orphanage in Uganda, and we gainfully employ hundreds of people in 8 different developing nations to make our products. Not all of our products are made in developing countries, but I would say 90% of them are. And the other percentage that aren't, simply because it's not like a handmade product, like screen printed t-shirts. We do those here in Wilmington. So, but why do I do what I do? So growing up, my dad and both of my grandfathers on both sides were ministers. And, I think regardless of anyone's religious belief, whatever, when you are a child raised, it's not just my dad. It's like dad, grandparents, my uncle also is a minister. It's like everyone in our family is, but it's like we joke, it's like the family business. Yeah. So great. But when you are raised in a household where every angle you turn, and I'm very close to my family, if I wasn't with my parents, I was with my grandparents. If I wasn't with them, I was with my aunt and uncle. And so when at every angle that you turn within your family unit, there is an emphasis on, I don't know how else to say it, selflessness, giving to others, sort of denying yourself in order to make sure that others' needs are met. And this isn't like it's not like some, how do I say, the word that's coming is like a monastery. It's not that. It's not like we were part of a sect where, we wear robes and we deny ourselves of any pleasures in this world. It's just more so that, if I'm hanging out with grandpa after school on a Wednesday, that night he likely has church. And instead of me, going to soccer practice after school, grandpa picks me up from school and we go change the bedpans of, a local elderly woman, and then go into a low income neighborhood and pick up 8 kids in a van. And then we go to church. And this was like my everyday existence. Adversely, my mother and most of the women in my family and not that the men in our family are not fashionable, but my mom and many of the women in my family not only were extremely fashionable, but worked in the fashion industry. And so my mom is an interior designer, but when I was very little, did interior spaces for high-end retail, like we're talking luxury retail, and also department stores, and, just major brands that any one of us would have heard of and visited their stores. And so I was raised in this way where I had this very weird dichotomy. On this side, it's like, the focus on basically living like Jesus and emulating the way that he lived on earth. And on this side, though every woman in my family is also a believer, it's very much a focus on creativity and, I don't know, just sort of like living in this elaborately creative space where design and fashion is like at the forefront, and sort of like every decision that is made hinges on this sort of like, I don't know, creative like direction in your life. And so, you take those two things combined, and I felt like the older I got, it was very hard for me to understand, how am I going to take these influences that have been imparted to me in my life and sort of combine them to find a career that works for me. Like, I didn't just want to work in the nonprofit sector because that would deny myself of this this love of fashion that I have. And I didn't really just want to work in fashion, especially couture fashion, because it isn't often the most selfless place to be.
Right.
And so there was this weird thing. Then in oh gosh, I'm like totally aging myself. In 2009, I got this offer to go and do a 6-month stint. It was like this program I was a part of at Tom's Shoes. And it was like my whole world opened. I'm like, holy cow, we've got fashion, we've got philanthropy. They have combined it. And every time you sell this fashion product, you're giving to someone in need. And it was literally as if my life had like changed. And I'm like, whoa, you can combine these. So since 2009, that's what I've done for a living. And here we are all these many years later.
Okay. I think that is the most fascinating background. And it's so funny as you were talking and you were kind of telling these stories about your grandfathers and it's like in my head, I was almost like, okay, I know that this is going somewhere, but like, I don't know where it's going. And I love it. And I mean that in like this clearly has influenced her. And what is it? And then like when you throw in, you're like, and then the women in my family were like, hi. And I was like, wait, what? You know, I love the mix of the backgrounds and you're right. It's when you're in those worlds, you're almost like, I don't know how these two things mesh together. And then all of a sudden your world just opened up. And so in 2009, you started Half United. And, we're going to start kind of at the beginning. Just like I said, I think I own one of the, original kind of the bullet jewelry. And if people aren't familiar, that was, I think, was it one of the first products that you guys did?
So yeah, it kind of was. I think we developed that product probably a year and a half into running this company when we realized, okay, because at the time, early on, I made handmade jewelry of like, I would go to craft stores and just buy like baskets of stuff. And then I'd go home and I would just assemble it and make these elaborate kind of like, it wasn't like a collection. Nothing really looked the same, but they would sell like pretty effortlessly. And so I thought, okay, jewelry works for us, but we need like a wearable symbol of your fight against hunger, because if you're wearing this necklace, like that's fine. But if we had a dual purpose where this necklace also served as sort of a statement as you're wearing it, where people would ask you, what is that? Is that a dog whistle? What is that? You could say, actually, no, this is a recycled bullet casing. It's been transformed from what can often be a negative tool into a positive symbol of fighting hunger or hope and healing, because bullets fight, but now this fights hunger. And I mean, that product really took off for us and kind of like put us on the map.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll tell you, we are in the moment right now trying to decide, and I'd love your opinion either on air or
I'm down. Let's do it right now.
We're trying to decide, should we vault that product or should we sort of like redo it in a fresh new way and relaunch it? Because, in 2009, of course, gun violence absolutely existed, but it wasn't to the degree that it existed, for example, when the Sandy Hook shooting happened. Mm-hmm. And it's when Sandy Hook happened that we thought, okay, our bullet necklaces are the antithesis of a school shooting. They are a symbol of hope and healing and repurposing something meant for bad and turning it into something that is good. Similar to how we wear crosses around our necks, right? Like we're all desensitized, I think, probably and rightfully so, what a cross actually is. Now it is a symbol of hope for many, many people, right? And so we thought, okay, that's what our bullets represent. But we were like, I just don't know if this is appropriate any longer, because people don't understand that this is turning a negative into a positive. So we're kind of like, we're now at this phase where we're like, should we vault this, and then maybe reintroduce a new product, or should we reintroduce it? So,
okay, well, no, I'm glad that you're asking my opinion. And do I know the perfect right answer? No, I'll tell you my gut. My gut says to revamp it and to not vault it, because I remember at the time when I first came across the work you were doing and I got one of those bullet necklaces and I loved the story behind it. And I loved the idea of redeeming something that is used to harm, but to give people hope and to so I am all about redemption. That is my own personal story, is a story of redemption. And so often this narrative that I hear from a lot of people is, oh, well, I can't do that because I did this, or I am too far gone, or I am worthless, or I have made too many mistakes in my life, or I have hurt too many people and I can't reconcile those relationships, or that I can't be forgiven, when that is false, and that the gospel is good news, and that the gospel is a story of forgiveness, of hope, of reconciliation, of, redemption that is all over the Bible. And so like that is something that I am very, very much a fan of and encourage and love to talk to people about. Because I didn't grow up in the church, so I did not have like the story you did. Now I grew up around parents and around a mother, especially, who was incredibly selfless. It's a longer story for a longer day, but so I have a very similar story to yours, just without the church. And so for me, I love to have that conversation. And I think it's an important conversation to have of you're not hopeless. You're not unworthy. You're not useless. And so I think that can be a really powerful symbol of this thing that can cause a visceral reaction in people, can cause people to feel anger and to feel, all sorts of feelings. But to take something like that and to redeem it and to repurpose it and to show, no, that there's actually hope on the other side of this, I think is really, really powerful, and something that I think makes what you do unique.
I really like that. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's interesting. We've asked a lot of people and we have gotten mixed reviews. So but you know what? It's like that product. It's always going to get mixed reviews. It was never a safe bet to sell that. And we always knew, and it's interesting. People either have a visceral reaction in a bad way, which is actually the minority. Like I have been pleasantly surprised by that, or they have a reaction in a really good way, or people just think it's like a necklace pendant. Yeah. And they don't know and they don't care. And even when you try to educate them, they still don't care. That has been the funniest thing to me. I'm like, well, here we are all worried about this. And most people are like, well, I just like it because it's a necklace, moving on. I'm like, hey, you still gave 7 meals to someone in need. So yeah, thanks for doing a good job. So but thank you for that. And I'll keep you posted on what we decide.
Yeah, I please do. And I'm very eager to see what the creativity, the creative side that comes out of you that does something with it, and to see where it goes.
Right. Very cool. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to transition a little bit, because to kind of talk a little bit about that piece of the puzzle that is so important to you. And that is the issue of fighting hunger. And, I know that you come from this philanthropic background, and a background where you're the men in your life really influenced you in this way. Why was this the issue that for you was really top of mind, and something that you felt, I see this as something that I really want to take on and tackle, not only in my own backyard, but also overseas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. As you sit and ask me that question, of course, I'm listening to you, but I'm having to at the same time think, okay, how am I going to answer this? And what flashed literally if I could capture this, what flashed through my mind, and aren't our minds so fascinating? Like how we can do this this multi-purposing kind of thing. But, it flashed through my mind, me hanging out in my grandfather's food bank that his church ran in Kaneohe, Hawaii, when I was a little kid, and like going into the back room in the food bank, and I didn't live in a home that personally battled hunger, right? We were the family that was giving to hungry people. And not that we had such great means, but we were basically at a church. And so it was sort of like we were supported by the community, and then we could go out and give. But I would go in the back and I would personally take snacks which my grandpa never knew that I did and would have totally scolded me probably for doing that. And then I think to myself, another time was when I was in college and I was running track at App State in Boone, North Carolina, and had for some reason, and probably because of the influence from childhood, just really felt like while I was there and, playing the sport and doing all this stuff, like, how am I going to give back? And so I worked for like this Good Shepherd ministry, I volunteered with this Good Shepherd ministry, and we would go deep into the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. Like I'm talking deep where, again, working in a food pantry and feeding people that lived in the mountains. And I'm talking, it would be like a foot of snow on the ground and people would come bare feet, wearing overalls, no shirt, like honest to God, speaking a dialect of English I did not know existed. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, like here I am just like eating in the cafeteria on my meal plan, running track, doing my thing. And there's these people that live not 10 miles out from where I am every day that don't have shoes and live in homes with no windows in the freezing cold and are coming here to be fed. And all to say that doesn't exactly answer your question, but I think I was just really heavily influenced by the things that I have seen and experienced from childhood. Even in the times where we would, hang out with some of the poorest families, in America. All that I remember from those moments when we would show up, let's say with groceries or with meals or have people over to our homes to eat was joy. Yeah. And it was happy and it was a fun time and it was hanging out. And it was, when you give back to other people, specifically through food and through showing love tangibly through food, food is something that I think it's like one of those few things in life that it's like a level playing field. I don't care if you are the richest man or woman in the Middle East to the poorest of the poor in some southern state in the United States, or in a developing nation. I mean, we all know what it means to be hungry, and we all need to eat about every 4 hours. And if we don't, we're not very happy that we're not. And so I don't know. I think I just have this association with the joy that comes from sharing a meal, the joy that comes from giving to others through providing food, and just like, I think using food as this tool to understand that like, oh man, we're all the same. And this is really fun that we get to do this together because we both know what it means to want and need this thing, which is, sustenance. So
it's such a powerful example of the global community that we're a part of. And I mean, I think about just when I have traveled, internationally, one of my favorite things, is trying the local food. And, if you go to different countries, I'm like, all right, I mean, that's fine. I'll look at the kind of quote unquote, like touristy places. But anytime I travel, I always go up to the person at the hotel or the, inn or wherever we're staying. And I go, where do you eat? Tell me your favorite place. I don't want to know where the tourists go. I want to know where you like. And I remember over the summer, my husband and my kids and I, we went on it's actually a work trip for my husband. We went to Portugal, which is really a cool place. But I remember I was like, all right, I want to know, like my husband and I, we had a night where we were able to go out just by ourselves and the kids were able to go to like a kids club in the hotel. And so I went up to the concierge and I was like, I need you to tell me where you would go on a date. And they were like, right away. They were like, I know exactly where to send you. And that was the best meal we had while we were there. I mean, by far, it was the best meal. And, and then you get to know the servers and you talk with them. Or, if you get to go somewhere where there's street food, oh, Lord, give me street food. I want a sketchy food truck all day long, where probably the sanitation rating is a C- at best, but it's going to be good.
I know. When I'm in Haiti, because we work there and we develop products there, we eat this thing called chicken in a ditch, like a lot, right?
You've piqued my interest.
I know.
I like chicken. I don't love ditches, but it's probably going to be delicious.
But we don't love chicken in a ditch, but it's called chicken in a ditch because it is cooked basically in a ditch. But I mean, it's incredible. Or goat in a ditch we've had. And so, yeah, I mean, you got to be careful with those things. I usually do come home with a bit of a stomach bug, probably
Always.
not from the chicken in a ditch, probably
No.
from, I don't know, other things, water or something. But yeah, I mean, and see, it's just those memories. Like you go to Portugal, like one of probably the most beautiful countries in the world. And the beautiful language and the culture and all this. And here we are talking about the restaurant that you went to on a date with your husband, which could have been glam, or maybe it was, I don't know, more lowly, but it doesn't matter because what we're connecting on here is that thing that food does to all of us. It's like, it's memorable and it just, we need it.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it does create this human connection that is pretty much unlike anything else that exists. Yeah.
And I was also thinking like kind of what you were saying when you go to Haiti. I think also food can be such a humbling thing to share as well. And I mean, I've never been to Haiti, but the primary developing country that I've been to is Kenya multiple times. And I'll say that the most memorable, and I mean, I've gone to Kenya and like seen the lions. I've seen, the animals and the beautiful countryside and all of that. But my most memorable moments are being invited into a woman's home and her teaching me how to make chapati over a fire and watching her use her bare hands on this cast iron skillet and just being flabbergasted that she's not like burning every last layer of skin off of her hands and, making of chai tea and, making some ugali and sharing these meals in these homes where the light is coming from. Like I have this very clear visual in my head where she had cut a hole in the roof of her home because her home didn't have any windows. And she'd put an empty 2-liter bottle in it to act as like a skylight and just sharing, this meal of chapati and ugali and chai tea, and laughing and talking about our kids and how crazy our kids are and those kinds of things. And it's like when you have those moments and I have those moments around our kitchen table when we invite people into our home over a meal, there's something that disarms people when you get them around a table or in a couple of chairs and some food in front of them. And it just, it just disarms them and they are able to share and to open up and you can laugh and you can pray together and you can cry together. I mean, there's a reason that they talk about like one of the most important things that you can do with your children is eat dinner together.
Yeah. Well, and it's too, I think for us, like, we always say, and I don't know if we market this enough, but like food for us or like fighting hunger, it's just like the means to the end.
Right.
Like the end is actually really just what I think I'm even more passionate about, to be honest, is just human empowerment.
Yeah.
But food and using food, it's an easy foot in the door to anyone's life because of the things that you just said. It disarms people. It lets them know you care about them. It's a necessity. I mean, there's nothing politically, I think slanted about the types of, I mean, maybe there's, I don't know, but typically there's nothing political or religious or anything about food and eating. It just is something we all need. It's like water. We just need it. And so for us, it's like we use food as a gateway into people's lives or into, I mean, it can battle all manner of things. It can loosen racial tensions. It can loosen tensions that exist between men and women. And there's just so many ways that using food, or like for us, which this even probably better than I do, farming and gardening and it brings people together. It's calming. And so, but ultimately the goal of, let's say, like working in our urban farm, we are growing foods that we give to many, many really interesting places and homes here in Wilmington. But it's also a gathering place where if we're sitting there, cutting kale, we likely, though we may from an exterior level look very different, we're going to find out through this hour and a half of spending time together. Oh, we're very, we have a lot in common, or we know the same people, or oh my gosh, we love the same hobbies. Or you sing, I sing, you run, I run, whatever. And this is where it's just a means to an end to empower humans. Oh, you need that? I have that. Oh, I'll give that to you, whatever. I mean, these types of conversations and interactions happen. I don't care if I'm in Haiti and we speak a different language, or if I'm right here in Wilmington. I have countless examples of these moments where food has just sort of leveled that playing field.
Right.
And it's okay, we're both here. Let's get to know each other. Yeah.
I love the way you describe that as fighting hunger and the mission of what you're doing as the means to the end. And that is such an important piece of this equation that I feel like so many people forget. And we can get, honestly, and I think even too, I've seen it in the nonprofit space where sometimes we almost forget the mission.
Yeah.
And I see it in churches.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Where, what is this is a really interesting thing that I haven't really thought about, or I think articulated or said out loud, where you start a nonprofit and you have this goal in mind, and then you allow the busyness, the day-to-day minutia, politics, money, all of the things to kind of influence your decisions. And eventually your original vision and mission gets muddied and you forget why you're doing what you're doing. And so I think what you said about reminding yourself that this is a means to an end is an important reminder. And man, that'll preach, because I think that there's a lot of people that you could take that exact concept and you could flip it to about 100 million different things. I mean, I think you could say it with your children. The means to an end is you want your children to fly the nest, to flee the coop or whatever one day, but you want them to be responsible and to be kind, compassionate humans, who love the Lord or serving others and have integrity and honesty. Well, that meal around the table each night, that's part of that. And so sometimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, and I'm preaching this to myself as well, is reminding myself that when my children come home, that they are not in my way, they're not a burden, they're not all these things. Sometimes it can be hard, between that 5 to 7:30 p.m. time, when just it's the witching hour and you're just, oh my gosh, can my children go to sleep? Is remembering the means to the end. I mean, I think it was with churches. What was the Great Commission that Jesus gave us? Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey. And we can forget that because we started churches, and all of a sudden we get bogged down into how much money is our church bringing in, and how many people are attending on a Sunday morning, and how many people have we baptized this year. And we're getting into the numbers, but are we discipling people? Are we impacting marriages? Are we changing family structures? Are we, breaking systemic systems that are, I'm saying I could go on. I could take 100, whether it's in the nonprofit world and the for-profit world and families and churches, that right there, what you said. And see, here we go. You've opened up a whole can of worms, Carmin.
You're doing it.
I'm telling you, I had a light bulb moment here. And so I think that is a really important reminder that nearly anybody, and this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to shut up, is the people listening. I don't know what it is you're doing. I don't know if you run a business. I don't know if you're a stay-at-home mom. I don't know if you're a work out of the home dad or a work from home dad. I don't know if you're just a friend, if you're a college student, if you're a retiree. What is the means to your end? What is the end goal? And if the end goal is you want to have a lot of money and you want to have alienated everybody in your life and you want to just be buried with all of your earthly treasures, great. Great.
Right.
Congratulations. Right. You're probably on the way.
Not a great end and not a great means to get there for sure. Yeah.
Right.
And I think too, I love that like really struck you, because I'll tell you, there was a very brief couple of years, we've now been at this 13 years where I lost, I thank God I'm not there anymore, but I lost our why. I lost, I think what happens sometimes, and it's kind of like this thing that at work we call like the wearing down of the saints. There was this, gosh, I don't remember who actually coined this phrase. It was like, like a theologian, but like from like 400 years ago. And don't even quote me on that because I'm wrong. Anyways, there's this famous like minister or theologian or something that coined this thing, maybe a monk. I don't know. Anyways, I'll have to find that out. But this phrase that our COO uses a lot, where it's like the wearing down of the saints, where what happens is it's not like we wake up, tomorrow and go, well, I just want to be selfish and self-absorbed and I want to be money hungry and I just want to focus on that. That's not what happens. What happens is we miss a sales goal and then we're panicked because we know that in order to feed kids in need, we have to sell stuff to give the money away. Right. And then the next month we miss the sales goal. And then the next month we miss the sales goal. And then you get so engrossed and you go through this thing where like, and that's just an example. There could be many things that cause this, but where you start to focus more on the how to make the mission happen versus the mission itself, which I think sometimes if even in the peak, whether it's the peak or the valleys of life, I think the valleys are what wear us down and cause us like those witching hours when the kids just cannot be, satisfied. And it's right. Like your day was crummy and the whole stinking family is at odds. And it's like, that if that happens often enough, we're no longer thinking kumbaya dinner time. We're just thinking like, I don't like my kids anymore. What is wrong with me? Why am I a mom? Right. That's a bad place to be. Right. And so I think all to say for those of you listening that you're like, oh, geez, I'm in that category where I have lost my true north. I don't even think about the mission. I don't even like my kids anymore. I don't that. Listen, you got two options here. You're either going to right yourself and go back true north, and you're just going to have to make the choice. Or I promise you, for me, I believe it's God. Other people may not see it that way, but God is going to get you back on track. And It is not easy when he does it. He did it to me. He like took me out to where I got so humbled and knocked off my high horse that I was on that now when we have successes, and this is not the most healthy either, I fear them because I even said we've been having a lot of success recently at work and I'm so grateful for it. And I think it is a byproduct of getting knocked off of my high horse and, sort of like climbing back up and now finding true north and being very heavily focused on our mission and giving back and being with the people. But when successes now come, I just said to our COO last week, I said, Tara, I fear now success because I can never go back to that place where I am self-serving. Like I just cannot go back to where I think that the things that I am doing are not being provided to me, that I am creating them. And when we think that we are like the masters of our fate and the dictators of our destiny, and we don't recognize, a higher power, other people that have gotten us there or whatever, it's just not a good place to be. And you're either going to have to get back there on your own. And I hope that is the choice you make, or I promise you, people can call it karma. It's going to come get you. It came to get me. But if that is for those people that are like, oh no, I'm the one, I'm like in the deepest pit of my life right now, I promise you, it's the best gift you can ever be given. I think it's James, basically to paraphrase, let trials make you stronger because they produce perseverance. Perseverance will produce hope. You got to let those trials shape you. So it's James 1. Consider it a great joy when you experience various trials because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its full effect so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. I love that so much. That's one of my favorite books of the Bible, and so much so that I am working on memorizing the whole book because it is
the kind of stuff that like you have to call to mind when you're like, oh, I need to be slow to speak. I need to be quick to listen. I need to be making sure that I am not trying to use human anger to accomplish something. You know what I mean? Like those, that is important to literally remind yourself of those things over and over and over again. And you're right. For the person listening, like no matter what it is. And like I said, that you could be, because you can take this out, this whole idea of losing the sight of your true north, losing sight of that. What is the end goal and what is the means you're working towards? You can apply that to anything. And I really feel like this is the gold mine here that I feel like we have stumbled upon because it is a really important piece of this equation of our lives. And when we, get 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years down the road and we look back in hindsight, so often hindsight is the biggest gift, but if we can be on the front end of it and not look back and go, oh, I shouldn't have done that or whatever it is.
Right. I wish I hadn't had to go through that.
Yeah.
Right.
Course correct is so important. And like I said, it can be applied in anything. And I think too, in the last couple of years, I mean, COVID and all of that has been such a refining process for us as a culture, us as people. And there's been a lot of, just pruning. I mean, not to like use a farmy word, but it's true. And, I think a lot of, it's unveiled a lot of things in our lives that, I don't think we necessarily love about ourselves. Well, I mean, we are like running out of time and I don't even know how that happened. We look at this, Carmin. We
could go all day.
I love it. I love it so much. Okay. But before we go, because there was a couple more things I wanted to ask you, but and I know that you guys have been through, I mean, I know you've kind of alluded to it a little bit, but you've had to make a lot of decisions over the years about when to grow, when to shift gears a little bit. How did you know when that time was right? And I realize that there's probably not like a super clear cut black and white answer. But I know that that's been a big part of your story. So what has that looked like for you?
I mean, I think what people have, from my own experience and what I would impart to anybody else is, and it's like so played out what I'm going to say, but you have got to trust your gut instinct, period. That's it. Trust it. Like, you are here for good. You are here to do good. If you are a person who is consciously trying their best every day to make the best possible decisions you can, you're trying as best you can to be led by integrity and, all of these good things that I sincerely believe most people are good and want to be wise. And it's like, the smallest voices or the smallest, it's like the minority always has the loudest voices in any case. Sometimes that's a cool thing. Sometimes that's not such a great thing. But it's like, I think sometimes the media can almost lead us to believe that, all of humanity is doomed and just the bad people everywhere. It's not true. Most people are still good, kind humans that want good for themselves and others. So because of that, I'm speaking to the masses when I say, just follow your gut instinct. When something feels off, it is off. When it feels like something has like a phase or a trend or something has died, and like if you keep going, your business or your endeavor might die with it. You've got to pivot. And if you'll just daily trust those gut instincts and do it in the face of adversity, because sometimes you will have members of your team, like I have very often, that I don't know if they just don't have business acumen or if they actually are that minority that want the worst for you. I don't know. But like sometimes the very thing that to be the very best, most positive decision you could make, you're going to have those naysayers in your closest camp. That is the worst feeling. And I have lived through that more times than I wish. And even in the face of those people, I mean, I'm talking, this could be your husband, your wife, your mom, your dad, or your closest confidant in your business. Even when they say they see it differently, if you checked all those boxes that I just checked, you're trying to lead by integrity and make wise decisions, and you're checking your motives and all this stuff. If you've kind of run through the gamut and your gut instinct still says to go a different direction, you just have to do it. And when I have done that, I cannot in this moment think of a single time it hasn't worked out, but I could think of times where I've gone against that and it hasn't worked out. So that would be my best advice to anyone, kind of stuck in that moment where it's like, gosh, which way do we go? Just look inside. You've got the answer.
Yep.
Just don't suppress that. So yeah.
So good. Such a great lesson, and often one of the hardest lessons to learn.
Can be gut wrenching, or it can be very easy. I mean, usually following our gut instinct is a very natural, easy process because it's kind of like there's no other way. But when those naysayers get in our way, that is when it can be just absolutely gut wrenching, but you got to do it. Because if you don't, you're not going to live your truth. And ultimately, the decision is probably not going to work in your favor.
Man, that's good. All right. Well, for the listeners, I will obviously have Carmin's information along with how you can shop Half United in the show notes. But now is the final portion of the show where we ask a couple of final questions. And Carmin, question number one is, what is the last thing that made you laugh?
Okay. Like literally the very last thing that made me laugh,
or
like as
just the most like, yeah, I mean, maybe it could be that. It could be the thing that like last made you belly laugh. I like to leave it open-ended.
Oh my God. Well, okay. So, I mean, I don't know if this is going to be fun for viewers, but my brother and my sister-in-law had just gone to New York City this past weekend, and my husband and I picked them up from the airport last night, and we for 21 years, we drove this red Toyota Tacoma that Zeth, my husband, and I met in college, and it finally gave out. Finally, we loved this thing. I mean, it was so nasty. One time I was driving it literally down I-40, 80 miles an hour, and the front left tire fell off.
Oh my gosh.
That might be one of the funniest things.
That's terrifying.
It was. Listen, I looked out the window like totally Wizard of Oz style, like and I see the wheel, the actual tire bounce past my window, and I see sparks flying, and I'm like, the tire just fell off, and I'm like driving like this, and I have to pull
my
into
gosh.
a median. I was like, all right, here comes a concrete wall. I'm either going to hit that, or I'm going to pull into this median and hope to God that the wheel shaft will dig into the earth and stop me. And it did, thank God. That was actually, looking back at just the whole thing of it is funny now that I've survived. But I'll just say, my brother is just so stinking funny. And we had pulled up in a new car. We just got a Subaru, probably another car we'll have for like 21 years. And just the jokes that my brother was making about getting rid of the truck and, this new car that we picked them up from, no one could, maybe my husband could make me laugh more than my brother, but he just is his timing is so good. And so that was probably the last thing that made me laugh. Sorry, it's not like that funny.
No, I love it. I love it. So I think the reason I ask this question is, one, sometimes, yes, it'll be like, oh, let me tell you the story. And there are times I just love to know, like, what is the thing that just brings people joy? I love it. Okay. Well, my next question is, what's the last thing that made you cry?
Yeah. So recently, gosh, and it's so funny when we're in the moment, it's like our troubles just feel like they weigh 1,000,000 pounds. Let me think about, my last really good cry. I think business, I'd gotten to the point, and I'm past it now, but I had gotten to the point even about a month ago where, like I said, we're having some great successes in business, but with that comes a lot of stress, a lot of working hours, I think I had gotten to the point where I was actually facing actual burnout, and I was sort of getting numb, where the successes weren't exciting me. The failures weren't terrifying me. That's a really bad place to be in. And I got numb. And I have started watching TD Jakes on TV. I literally love that man. And at the same time, I find so many of his little quirks so funny and cute. But I was watching him, and I think Zeth was not here at home. And I think just some stuff that he was saying and encouraging and teaching, I think I just like stood in my living room and like ugly cried and like just let it loose. And I think I just like kind of like wept and just, I think we build up so many emotions, and sometimes the best release for that is tears. And I'm sure there's a scientific reason why it's
absolutely. It's so cathartic.
And I just like ugly cried. And so I think just the release and just being honest with myself that sometimes the bad can weigh heavy and sometimes the good is even a little bit too heavy because it's too much for just us to bear. And so, yeah, I think I finally just kind of like let that out, and now I'm doing a little better. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, my last question is, on your day-to-day life and in your day-to-day journey, how do you choose joy?
Yes. So this is a cool one for me because obviously it's funny. I didn't expect on this discussion to talk as much about our faith as we kind of have like inserted over and over. But I think I have recently, and I don't know if this is with age or like I said, like coming out of, some really hard years in our business where I had lost my true north. And I think now that I'm getting it back, we're seeing success again. I know what it means to be a selfish, self-centered person that I'm never going to be again. I think now I have grown very comfortable and moderately obsessed. And I mean that in kind of a mild way. It's not a real thing, but with like literally trying to emulate like Jesus himself. Like, who was he? What types of things did he say? What decisions did he make? Like, how did he love people and be with them? And not in this like, and no offense to like what I'm about to say, but not in like this K-love, hey, I'm a Christian, I go to Starbucks and I wear plaid.
Yeah.
Like I personally want like absolutely nothing to do with that stereotype. I don't want to be stereotyped because I'm a Christian, and I don't want, it stinks. Like the stereotype that nowadays I think rightfully can be pegged on Christians, unfortunately. I just want to like live the way that he did and try my best every day to like release, this infatuation with, like we're talking about, these earthly pleasures.
Right.
And just try and find a way to constantly just like love and be a example of him. And I'm going to tell you, the more I'm doing that wholeheartedly and with no intention of anybody noticing this about me, and I'm not putting it on Instagram, this is not for anyone's highest praise, the more joy I am finding, the more satisfaction I am finding in both my successes and my failures. I'm seeing the failures as like total gifts. I'm seeing the successes. I'm opening my hands with total gratitude. Like, I don't know. I'm just like following our dude.
Yes.
and it just like really is making a really cool difference in my life. And it just brings me a lot of joy, and it's great. Yeah.
So good. Carmin, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in Wilmington and around the globe. And I'm really excited to see how things continue to grow and shift and evolve for you over the next, over the next 13 plus years.
Yes. Thank you. I received that. Thank you so much. And thanks for what you do. I've been learning about all of the things that you do with your family, your business. It's fascinating. I want to be a homesteader. I want to be you gardening. Like,
come visit.
Yeah. Gosh. I mean, I can't go to the grocery store anymore and not think, why am I not just growing this?
Yeah.
Like, I can grow this thing I'm buying.
Yeah.
Like, you can't grow Oreos. I'm celiac, so I can't eat them anyways. But you can grow.
Are Oreos like gluten-free now? Or they have gluten-free Oreos?
Don't tell me that.
I think they do, because I have a friend who's celiac and definitely has eaten some gluten-free Oreos. So maybe I made your day. Maybe I ruined it. I don't know.
You made it, and you ruined it, but you made it. Oh my gosh, my favorite childhood pastime is coming back.
I
know. But yes, thanks for all you do and what you're giving to the world.
Thank you.
It's great.
You're awesome. Carmin is just what a gift she is. I loved this conversation, love her heart and her vision, and I hope that you did too. If there was something that you liked or something that you learned in this episode, I would love for you to let me know on social media. You can find me at Still Being Molly or at Can I Laugh Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And if you would take a moment to head on over to whatever podcast app you are listening to this on right now, would you take a moment to hit that subscribe or follow button and take a moment to leave a review? Doing that just helps me to know what you're liking and how the show is impacting you. Be sure to tune in next week, where my guest is Greg Jones, who is the president of Belmont University in Nashville. We talk all about hope. And if you are feeling hopeless or you just need a little bit more hope today, that conversation is going to be for you. So don't miss it next week. As always, thank you to the team at Third Wheel Media for producing the show. And for you, I hope something this week makes you laugh till you cry. Bye.